The greatest tragedy is that God couldn't love us fully because we didn't have the means to. We didn't have an example. We didn't have a parent that God can work through to deliver his full love to us. That's the greatest tragedy. And when Jesus came, we were able to get half of it. And then he had to come back to give us the full picture as a couple, as parents, for all of us. So yes, it's harvest time. And I like to call it's time for us to eat the cake that we've made. It's eating time. This is, remember, I studied food science in college. Okay, so I love food because I know the power of food. I know the power of a good harvest can feed people. And when everyone has what they need, then everything is good. The only thing left to do is love and build on top of that. And that's what I hope to do here. Okay? We're going to finish the series today. Yeah, let's give it up for this 12 daily habits. Spiritual daily habits. Yeah, man. I'm a little sad, but sure enough, there's going to be a new series coming, I'm sure, after Christmas time. And this subject is way too big to cover in one sermon. So, just mark my words, we're going to have a whole other series on just parenting alone. And I don't care how old you are or how old your kids are. You can't stop learning. Right, Uncle Robert, when it comes to... Yeah. Right. And keep in mind, everyone's parenting is different. This is why it's hard to have play dates, because other people's parenting might be different. So when you bring your kids together, you might have some disagreements and, don't talk to my child that way, or, so I understand this is a very, it can be opinionated topic. Mm-hmm. But why is that? Why is it so opinionated? Well, it's because this matters to us. And God, it matters to God how he raises each of us. I was talking to Uncle Robert, and it's like, not only is every child different, but every day they're different, right? There's no cookie-cutter education for all of our children. It's something you constantly invest into, something you're constantly like, this works better than this way. Don't spank your children anymore. That's old school. Now we're just doing timeouts now. It's like, all these things is because we care so much about how we raise our kids. It's rather than, we can debate, right, Reverend? We can debate and argue, or we can say, look, this is important, so let's talk about it. How do we get better, become better parents through parenting? And so I thought I'd try to go down the middle. The common base, I think, as all parents, I think we can agree, we want to be principled parents. We want to put the principle into practice somehow. And so as long as we can measure from the principle, then we can assess our parenting. And even you might have a great plan, parenting plan and strategy, but then it comes into how do you put it into practice? It becomes the next question. Do you have the checks and balances? So a wonderful subject that we can go infinitely on. But I'm going to focus on a certain area today and emphasize, how does God see children? Exactly. So I'll pull up some scripture, and, the only scripture I'm going to pull up today is from the Mother of Peace. I want to hear from my mama. I did a lot of reading about what True Father said about children, and it's amazing stuff, really deep. But today I want to hear from Mama. Also, I'm feeling more humbled at home. Sayaka is still... The baby's healthy, by the way. Yeah. That's right. She's doing her part. It's not easy having all those... I feel like every 2 hours, she's like... She just gets so hungry. I can see, she's suffering. She's struggling and facing all these involuntary movements in her body to receive the breast of life, And So she's working hard too. So yes, she does deserve applause. And of course, Sayaka, my wife, she's the one who really, I'm just so moved. Even this morning, she allowed me to get up at 3 and prepare my sermon, and so I couldn't help her at all this morning. So I'm just moved by that. And I gave her a hug with appreciation, and she felt the love. So it's a good principle God made for us. Okay, let's do some milestones first. Number 1, everyone is prayed for by name every day. Number 2, everyone has a mission. And 3, everyone is contributing to the blessing culture. My Jew. Okay, so we're wrapping this up with the raising of the children of God. From the Mother of Peace. Deep stuff here. God's dispensation for the salvation of humankind is not something that happens in one generation. I see William nodding yes. No, definitely. Yeah. To carry it out, God has sought out and established central people throughout history. 2,000 years ago, how did God send Jesus, his only begotten Son, without original sin, to this earth through the people of Israel? The Bible records that God had to restore a pure lineage in several stages. So do you think restoring a pure lineage is just like an automatic, I'm sure it's just wait it out. I'm sure just roll the dice every generation and someone's going to just pop up and be the Messiah? And what do you think? Is it more meticulous, and God is constantly separating, dividing and his people, and so that he can give birth to a pure son? It's, of course, meticulous. But this just general point that it doesn't matter how great you are. You might be the most amazing pastor, and you're even the best. You make an impact, and you say you feed people or you do amazing things, but you don't pass it on to the next generation. You don't raise up a mentee or a youth. You don't invest in the youth. Then you lose everything in a matter of even a few decades. That's why children is so important. As Jesus said of the little children, the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. A child sleeping peacefully is the epitome of peace. Yes, it is. A child's innocent smile clearly illustrates what happiness is. A child's voice is gentle, but it opens the door to the heart, reconciles strangers, and expresses happiness and peace. This is how God sees children. I like to think they're like the light of hope. This pure, like, teardrop of God. Just so pure. I mean, of course, I'm talking about newborns right now. And, I had this crazy experience the other day. I was half awake, half asleep. And I don't know if I was just delirious or what, but I was holding Emika, and I kind of lost my sense of self. I felt like I was in her body. Like I became the baby that I was holding. A little trippy, but I could see, I was seeing with my eyes. Does that make sense? So I'm feeling all the things that she's feeling, like being held and, that warmth of the blanket in the arms. But it was my eyes. It was pretty cool. I think, you know what? Maybe this is how God feels. That God is trapped inside of our body. But he can see everything. Now, how do you think I was feeling? Was I feeling, trapped or sad or whatever? No, I was so happy. I felt warm. I felt, wow, this is great. But would I want to feel like that forever? Would I want to be in that little tiny infant forever? Well, anyone here, would you forever want to be a baby?
No.
Okay. I think that's how God feels. Even without the principle, without your parents introducing this I would say mature understanding of the Bible and of God, it's like God's trapped in a little baby. We're still like crying out, God, oh, save me, liberate me, feed me, right? But we also, we didn't grow up. And so God has a longing for each of us to develop our individuality, our personality, and to express ourselves and be completely responsible. But packed in that little infant is that potential in that future. Yeah. But yeah, when a child is sleeping, that is definitely peace. That is universal. Parents should be passionate and work hard so that our blessed children can grow up pure and beautiful under God's will. Our true hope is to raise our children not just as sons and daughters of our own families, but as the proud sons and daughters of God. Yeah, every child is so special and has a unique potential. And another tragedy is that we as parents don't know our potential. And we tend to smother our children with our own idea and push them, in a certain way. And it's amazing, even, I thank God for even modern, scholarly studies of being parents, I feel like I'm reading books now where it's clear how we don't know how to set appropriate boundaries for our children, I feel like that's always a question. How much responsibility can I give them without breaking them? I was reading one book from Brené Brown, if anyone reads about her, but if you don't give boundaries to your children, it's like setting them on a bridge with no rails. No what do you call it? Handrails or little guards or... it's like without the principle, how can you raise any child properly? It's so sad. I feel bad for every child. They didn't have proper. And let's face it, we all had issues, right? I think just about everyone in this room probably can say they didn't have perfect parents, And again, I'm not criticizing for not being perfect as much as I am. I'm sad that we didn't have the tools. We weren't equipped. We weren't taught in schools even. School, frankly, I'm not sure if I want school to teach my kids how to be good parents. But that's a problem in and of itself. Why can't we should have a society where we're clear how to raise kids well. And that's, of course, God is interested in that. He wants to make sure our education is right. Applying the principle in our parenting. So each of them so God can raise each of them up. This is True Mother. And I was reading pages and pages of True Mother. Mother, she had 14 children. She gave birth to 14 children. That in and of itself is a victory, and no one can tell her anything. She, just paying that price alone qualifies you to give advice about parenting. She risked her life to bring our children into the world, and now they have their own missions and responsibilities that heaven wishes them to fulfill, and that I also hope they can accomplish. Although as their parent, I may be unable to help them enough, I pray for them every day. You can kind of imagine the children And we can talk about the true children, true mother's children, or we can talk about all of us, all children everywhere. They're going to have to find their own way. But so often we try to hold on to them, right? I can't tell you how many parents have come up to me and said, Milhan, how did you do it, How did you turn out so good? Why is my child like this and that and blah, blah, blah? I'm like, just let it go, Let them go. Let them go do their own mission. But there is one thing you can do. Look, we got to trust God at some point, right? You got to offer them up. They're not really your child. God has made them, yes, in your image and yourself, but at the end of the day, that's God's child, so you have to trust God. But God needs help too. He needs your prayer. He needs your attention to mobilize spirit world, because you don't know, bad things can happen in an instant. That's why it's every day. Even Father said you should pray 3 times a day for your children. So prayer. In fact, Dr. Michael Kiley, I don't know if anyone read his doctorate publication, but Dr. Michael Kiley, I think many of us know, he did his doctorate on parenting. And he looked at model families, children who grew up in the faith and kept it. And he was looking for, what are the qualities of the parenting that allowed them to keep their faith? And I think his conclusion was, it doesn't really matter, a lot of things. Because they were all so varied and diverse. But there was one thing in common. The parents prayed for their kids every day, without fail. In fact, he has a whole chapter that says, pray for them, pray for them, pray for them. So why do you think that's one of our milestones? Our first and foremost milestone. Okay, this is my reveal, my secret to you all. My secret to success is praying for people every day. So I'm going to get practical now. I'm going to close with this, actually, although this will take another 10 minutes, I think. So here's my opinion, all right? So this is not God's word, all right? This is my own experience, limited. My daughter's 8 years old, so. But I was a young person once too, okay? I was a child of parents. So here's my principled parenting for you all. You need 2 types of culture. One is a vertical culture, and one is a horizontal culture. Okay? Yes, you do relate to your children horizontally too, not just vertically. So in the true vertical culture, I think as parents, you need to lead the core traditions. In fact, lately, Saika was giving me some constructive criticism of my parenting. She says, Milhan, you're kind of slacking in the morning Kyongbeshik department. Every day we're supposed to bow to our 2 parents and read one pledge, do a quick prayer. But we haven't been doing that lately. So it was a good reminder for me. But this is something that you lead. You can have your children do. I'm not one who has my children lead it. I know some people do that. I don't do that. No, Papa leads these traditions. So I want to make sure they understand how it goes. So that includes daily Hundake and prayer. We pray at night. Of course, these Sunday service. So I know they're all these mamas watching on Facebook right now. Number 2 is respect and attend your spouse like a good JTB. Anyone know what that is? John the Baptist. Keep in mind, it's a good John the Baptist figure. Okay, so this means you are good. You're not betraying your spouse, but you're a good. So what you do is, if you're the husband, then you almost attend your spouse, your wife, like a child. If she says something, that's the law. And you listen to her. And you have to be an example for your own kids, how much you respect your spouse, you know? Because if you don't respect her, you think the kids are going to respect her? No. The kids, they only know what you show them. So even if you, I don't know, you want to speak respectfully, you don't have to always speak in honorific, but you can, whatever you do, your kids will follow. So attend your spouse, take care of her, and then, you know, if the husband's always working, then the wife's role is still, when Papa comes home, to make sure the kids greet the father when he comes home, because that's all they have sometimes. And yeah, I know it can get complicated, because back when I was commuting to New York, by the time I got home, it was like sometimes the kids had to go to bed, and I want to play with them, but I can't. You know, because if I play with them at night, then they're all rowdy and they can't sleep. So it's really important that moment when the father comes home, they can get that hug and that love there. And last, for vertical culture, is to practice a high noon settlement culture, where there's no shame, there's daily reporting, like original mind and body unity and sexual integrity. Basically sexual integrity. Now, I know that we often talk about sexual purity, and I think that's fine, but I think the reality is it's like almost impossible to stay like 100% pure. So I think the more importantly is there's clear reporting. In fact, if anyone here has heard of High Noon, it's a whole organization that was started to focus on this very topic of bringing intimacy and authenticity in the home. And you know, if you and your parents or you and your children can have an honest conversation about sexual challenges or anything at all, then that becomes the beginning of a real honest and artistic relationship. Because if you don't have that conversation, someone else is. And they're going to hijack your child's trust and hopes for the most amazing gift that God has to give us. So the parents need to take initiative to have that conversation with their children. So every night we do a report. Well, actually, on that subject, there is a book, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, for all those you have little kids. Highly recommend it. There's like way too much text in there, but the kids basically get the idea. If you see a naked person on TV or somewhere, you just shout it out, like porn, you know. And this is great, and you know we kind of make fun of it, but it's very important. In fact, we were watching a harmless movie. Actually, Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and there's a scene with a bunch of dudes where they're like playing volleyball with shirts off, and my kids are like, porn, porn, porn. And I was like, oh, good job. I mean, that's not really porn, but good job. That's it. That's, you know, and they're just laughing like, bah, bah, bah. So, and what that does is it's almost, you know, it's like when someone touches your car, and like sirens go off, you know. That's kind of what it does. It's just like sends a message out like someone's doing something wrong over here. You know. There's also videos that say don't let strangers touch your private parts and stuff like that. But I mean, it's serious though, especially now. It's getting to the point where I think children get exposed to pornography around 8 on average, and I'm sure it's getting younger and younger. And one time, just this past week, they were watching Teen Titans, which is a relatively harmless show. I think it's pretty good. It's pretty funny actually. And I noticed there's like this kind of ugly demon-looking guy that was like naked. Little disturbing to look at. Okay. When I walked in the room, they were watching in the bedroom on a tablet because Mom was trying to keep some peace in the room. But I I noticed it, and then Ayumi saw me, and she looked at me and was kind of a little bit ashamed. So she actually turned the iPad away from me. Okay? Like, ooh, this is a great teaching moment, you know. So I'm like, no, don't hide it. And I just sat down next to her, you know, and I watched it with them. And they're just like, okay, you know, watching it. And, you know, it was a little bit weird, but it wasn't that bad. It was okay. And so I determined that it was all right, but what I didn't want her to feel like is that it was okay to hide it from me. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's what this high noon culture, because look, guys, you can't get through a movie, you can't get through a TV show without seeing something off, you know? And you got to live your life too. You know, I can't walk around Times Square like this, you know? So that's what this culture comes in, to protect your kids from. You can always reset at the end of the day. Lots of reporting. Okay. Now the horizontal culture. Number one, this is a ministry. This is the ministry of being present. Turning off all the other things in your head. And I mean, gosh, we all do this, right? You're sitting at the dinner table, and even if you're not on your phone, you're on the phone in your head, right? You're crunching numbers, you're simulating stuff in your mind, and you're not really there. Anyone watch the movie Click with Adam Sandler? Yeah, raise them high. Anyone? So okay, good. Okay, my kind of people. It's a movie about a guy who finds this remote control and he can fast forward his life. So he can skip all the boring parts, right? But it goes haywire, and basically he fast forward his entire life, and he dies, and it's a pretty tragic movie. Of course, that's not how it ends, but it's always happy ending. But when he was fast forwarding, what was really going on in his real life was he was just like dead. Like he was just like not. He was doing all the motions, but he wasn't really with people. And so he became this absent, no soul, no mind. And we look at that and we laugh at that, right? Oh, that's funny. He's just like, no, eating his dinner and like, no. Everyone's talking at him. We laugh at that, but you know, that's kind of how things are sometimes. You know, I tell Sayaka, I can't help it. I'm just so used to you. You know, you're always there. It's like you're like an appendage, and I just don't even notice you anymore. And that's not good. We need to turn everything else off and be fully present. You know, I was talking to one of my coaches, and she specializes in parenting, actually. And she explained to me what happens when you do this, when you're present with a child. Because children, they have very unstable emotions. You know, they can't control it. When they're upset, they're like, and they can't control themselves, okay? They get really upset. Now, as adults, most of us anyway, we can control our emotions, so we don't start crying, and, you know, we can control it, and, you know, just go up and down. You know, that stuff goes on every day. But when a child is crying at you, what they're asking for you to do is to kind of come down to their level, and then you can help regulate their emotions again. They're borrowing your emotion, your stability, so they can get back into a more, not fly off the roller coaster, but they can ride it with you. When you don't do that, for example, so Hiroki, I think he's been noticing less and less love these days. So he's 5 years old, has a new baby sister, and I think he's not realizing it, but he's getting less love. It's a fact. So he's getting a little more. He gets into what's it called? What do you call fits or not? What do you call it? Tantrum. Thank you, tantrums. Case in point, last night. Okay, so he and Ayumi, they were taking a bath, and they always end up fighting at some point if you don't watch them. But this time, he couldn't stop crying, and he was so mad. Oh, she scratched my butt, and I'm like, he's like, she did it on purpose, and I'm like, and she's like, no, I didn't. I'm like, anyway, I know she didn't. It was an accident, but anyway, he wants to make a big deal out of it because he wants attention, right? And so I knew how it was going to end. He was going to be crying to his mom, and it's fine. But at that point, instead of just like dismissing how he feels, I got a little bit angry too, right? So I kind of went to his level a little bit. And I was like, go ahead and cry as long as you want. That's what I said, okay? And he did. Finally, I was like, okay, that's enough. I pick him up, I take his naked body out of the bathtub, just dry him off and just send him out, Still crying the entire time. He probably crying for like 10 minutes straight. Finally, I'm like, okay, Mama, can you go get him? I think he's done. And then right after all of that, he had, we were playing a video game that day that kind of got him scared. And so I was able to kind of comfort him and hold him and give him 2 parents' picture, so he won't have bad dreams. And I was just holding him like a baby, and I was just loving him. So he went from like way down here up here. But if I wasn't present, I wouldn't have caught onto that. I would have missed it. I would have interpreted this, he's just having a tantrum and just, but I was like, no, I'm going to go to his level and bring him to Mama, and then come back, complete the cycle, bring him back to normal, So that's what, you can't do it if you're not present. Okay. Can we advance one? Okay, okay. This next one I got straight from Mrs. Young. And she said that you should include your children in everything. And she gave examples, I guess her examples. Cooking. I guess if you're a mom, you're cooking a lot. So playing, watching movies. Again, we spend a lot of time on entertainment, so you got to be there with them. I think it goes both ways. You include the children in what you're doing, but also allow them to include you in what they're doing. That give and take, and it just contributes to this high noon culture. And this is my last point, and this came from Dr. Young himself, which is, I put to be sensitive to a play to policing ratio. Okay? Play to policing ratio. For me, this is, if you got nothing else out of this, it's this right here. So what do I mean by, anyone know? Anyone heard Dr. Young talk about this? What does he say? Well, he says that we should praise our children 99%. Okay? And then discipline them, be negative towards them 1%. I'm like, that's interesting, because, the ratio is important. Is it 50-50? Is it, 20-80? Is it the 80-20 rule? What is it? He said it's 99-1, 99%. So if you have 2 disciplinary actions in a day, that means you should have had 180, what is it? Anyway, 198 positive interactions that day. In theory, of course, we don't always hit the mark. But what I mean by be sensitive is like, if I just come home, I'm just like cracking the whip on my kids, that doesn't work. Now, if I love them up, and I give them, they were happy, and we had a joyous time together, then I can crack the whip. In fact, that's what I usually do. Basically, all day long, we're doing fun things with the kids, and I'm praising them for whatever they do. And then at the end of the day, it's like, all right, clean up the house, brushing your teeth now, and going to bed on time. So I cracked my whip at the end of the day. So this is, I just can't, I'm just so sad when I go to the store and I see a mom, and I get it, sometimes they have no more energy left, and they're just like yelling at their kids. Just yelling at them, saying, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Like, your child's going to hate you. And that's not going to be good for them. They need to want to be around their parents. So, and 99, again, you don't have to be like praising them 99 times, but this positive interaction, getting creative and being present with them, that's so important. And sometimes you got to get creative, and if you can find something that you both enjoy equally, that is such a gift. So like for me, it's like Paper Mario. Anyone know what Paper Mario is? Well, I got no one there. Oh, 2. Okay. But that's one game we all could play. It's a one-player game, but Papa can enjoy it as much as the kids enjoy it. Or reading a book, like a Pokemon book. For me, that's like, I'm enjoying it too, because I'm like reliving my childhood, and my kids are getting, Papa's reading in all the different voices and intonations. And so try to find things that you both can do together. And if your kids are adults, then obviously you got to find the right movies, I guess. It was one of my best memories with my dad, okay? And forgive me if I've said this before, but one of my best memories is watching a movie in the movie theater. I Am Legend. Okay, I Am Legend, anyone remember that movie? Yeah, okay. So the trailer sold it like this post-apocalyptic, right, kind of this desolate world, but it ended up being a zombie movie, basically. Not my favorite genre. I have no interest in watching a zombie movie. Neither did my dad. So we literally sat through a zombie movie together, and we just laughed and laughed. And so little did we know that would turn out to be one of the fondest memories we've ever had. So be sensitive to those playful experiences you have with your kids. Okay, so that's what I'm going to offer up today. God is very interested in this subject. So this is just the beginning, okay? I'm just kind of throwing out a bunch of things that we do need to discuss further. Because these are these children, the light of the future, light of hope. That purity, that innocence, that we're all trying to get back to. Right, everyone when we make a child smile, then you've done it, because we get back to that purity, that innocence. So let's do it. Let's pray.